In this video, we're going to go over managing your application's database entries. This is how you can actually access the data that has been created in your app, either by yourself as the system admin of the app or your users as they're filling out forms that you've designed or triggering workflows that generate records in your database. All of it can be found here. Now, to get to this screen, you want to navigate to the Data tab of your editor and then to the App Data subtab. You'll notice that all of your tables are broken up by the data types that you've defined. Okay, so on the left here, we can see all of our data types, and when you select one, you are seeing that specific table and all of the entries within it. The fields that you've created are now columns in this table, okay, just like a traditional spreadsheet. Now remember, your application comes with a development version and a live version, and each one of these versions has its own database, okay? So most of the time when you're building out your application, that always happens in the development because it's the only version that you can actually edit. You're gonna be working with your test data in your development database. That's what we're looking at right here. I know that I'm in my development mode because I see development up here in the upper right corner. If I wanted to switch over to the live environment and view the live data, again, which is a completely separate database, I can go over to this window and click on live and Bubble will switch me over, or I can click on the shortcut here. It's going to give me the exact same result. All right. As long as you've deployed the architecture of your data structure, right, your data types and your fields and option sets, when you deploy through the deployment window here, it's going to copy that structure over to the live version of your application, and the live version of your application will now be able to manage data with that same structure in a separate database. So for example, if I create a user in my development database, that user is not going to exist in the live environment. Vice versa, if I create a user in the live environment, it's not going to exist in the development database. They are completely separate. And that is a good thing because you want to have a separate database in order to work with test information and not interrupt your live user's experience. Now, you can copy data between the two databases if you'd like. We actually went over this in a separate video in an earlier module, so you can take a look at that to understand how to copy and restore your data between the two databases. All right, so what I want to go through in this video is how to work with this window here, how to leverage everything available for you here to keep track of your data and actually use this as a helpful troubleshooting tool as well. Your database can tell you a lot about how accurate your workflows are running, if things are saving properly, right? So let's take a look at what we have here. So on the left-hand side, we have the list of all of our data types. Now you will always have at least one view for each data type. Okay, so look at these as a default view of that data type. Right now, I'm looking at my application records. All right, and so here I can see all of the fields that I've created within the application data type, and I can see all of the entries. By default, Bubble will sort this by creation date, where the newest is at the top. Now, if I want to manually edit a record, I can click on the pencil icon. It will open up this form. I don't have to design this form. Bubble has generated this for me automatically based on the fields that I've created. And I can manually edit this information. And if I want to manually create a new entry, I can click on a button up here, right? And I can start to fill this out. Now keep in mind, some of your fields may be relationship fields. And so when you're filling in a company for an application, for example, you need to look up a company that already exists. I cannot create a new company from this window, right? Here I'm creating a new application. So if I want to associate a company with an application, that company needs to exist in the company table first. So if there's a new company involved, I need to go create that first. So if I search for, let's see, I think City University was one of my companies, right? This is a record that exists in the company table, right? Let's actually go take a look at that. Let's go to companies over here, and I'm just going to search for City, and Bubble will show me, here is my City University record. So this exists. And so when I go to the application table and create a new application and tie it to a company, I'm searching by the primary field that has been set up for the company data type. All right, what is a primary field? Let me cancel out of this, and you can see over here, there's a button to open up all of the primary field settings for each of your data types. This is simply a way for you to give every data type a representative field for this view that you have here in your editor. So company is represented by its name. That way, when I'm looking at, for example, a list of applications and I see the company associated with that application, I'm looking at it by its name. If I had changed the primary field to the company's location, then it's going to change the representative field to the location, which is not as helpful for me for this particular example, right? If there's multiple companies all in Brooklyn, I can't really tell these apart. So that's where the primary field can really help you separate your records, right? You want to choose something that is going to ensure it's a unique identifier so that you can keep things apart. The most unique thing is, of course, Bubble's built-in unique ID. This is generated for every single record of every single data type automatically for you. This is not something you can change. It's an internal ID that Bubble will create for you. Okay, so it looks like this, right? Also not very helpful in terms of really knowing which company it works with, but you know, at the end of the day, if you're troubleshooting and you really need to distinguish and be able to find specific records, the unique ID is always something you can fall back on. Okay, because everything is completely unique, even across tables. You're never going to find a unique ID in one table that also exists in another, right? Everything is unique across tables. So again, for company, the best representative field, at least for now, is the name of the company. Okay, now the primary fields have no effect on your workflows or what your users are going to experience, anything in the front-end design. These are purely for you to view your data with a representative field from this window only. That's the only thing that these primary fields affect, okay? Now you'll notice for applicant, which is a user data type, let's go take a look at the structure of the application real quick, right? So that company field is tied to a company. The applicant field, the applicant of an application, is tied to a user, right? And so we're seeing the user's email address here. If I go to the primary field and change the user, which is currently on email, change it to the full name, okay, then I'm going to see the full name of the applicant represented there. You can obviously see here that some of these applicants that had email addresses, if these are empty, it doesn't mean that the user disappeared. It's just that that user probably doesn't have a full name saved to their record. So another troubleshooting thing to be aware of, right? If you see blanks here, maybe try changing the primary field to something where you know there's always going to be a value. Your fallback, again, is going to be your unique ID, because everything is always going to have a unique ID that's never going to be empty. So I can very clearly see every single one of my applications does have an applicant. But if I go to the full name, I can see that a lot of my applicants don't have full names, right? If I go to the email address, which is also a built-in field for the user, every user needs to have an email address, I can be sure that there will be a value there. Okay, the only scenario where the email address or the unique ID would not show up for a user here is if the application does not have a value in that user field, right? If I go to this application here where the email is test2@email.com, if I clear this out, well, I've now removed the applicant from this application. I'm going to hit save on this, okay, like this. It's gone now. I did not delete the user. I want to be very clear about that. I did not delete the user. I simply removed the applicant from this application. So this value is empty. But that user test2, let's see, at email.com, still exists in the database. Okay, I can go back to that application and find them again, test2. It's going to auto search for me, right? It's going to pull up any matching things. If I don't type in the full email address, I'll select it and hit save, and then it will relink it back to the application. One thing I want to point out as well is when you are manually creating records in the back end here, if you have data types that have a two-way relationship with each other, Bubble is not going to automatically fill in the relationship on the other side. Okay, so under the, let's look at job post as an example. This job has a relationship to, or the job post structure has a relationship to the company, so that every job post, you know, we know which company that job belongs to. If I manually create a new job here and tie it to, you know, City University, Bubble is not going to update City University's record and automatically add this job to the company's list of jobs. I have to do that. Bubble doesn't know what I'm building, so it can't make those assumptions and make those automatic connections. Because you could, in theory, have multiple fields that relate to the same data type, but you're using them for different things. So Bubble can't assume where those two-way relationships need to happen. So just be aware of that. When you make a relationship on one end, you will have to do it on the other end if you have that field set up there. Okay, you have to tell Bubble every single thing you want to do. Now, you may want to view these tables in a specific way. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, these are default views. You can create modified views of your tables. So let's take a look at our applications view as an example. If I edit the view, I have control over which fields I want to see in my modified view. I'm about to create a copy of this view, but I can change it. So maybe I only want to see, I'm going to deselect all of the columns there, the company and the job post, right? That way I can see, all right, in general, how many job posts are we seeing per company? Just kind of a high level look at that. If I hit save here, right? So now I have a modified view of my applications. I don't have to see all of the fields, just the fields that I want to look at. Not only that, I'm going to open this back up again here. I can rename this view. So I can say, you know, filtered applications, something like this. If I hit save, right, it's going to show me that view there. This is simply a filter. If I delete this view, which I can now because it's a modified view, that's why this icon's there. If I delete it, I'm safe to do that. I'm simply deleting the filter. I am not deleting the table. I'm not deleting the records. Okay, so again, if I create a new modified view, there's other things that I can do here, not just, you know, selecting or deselecting columns. I can change the sort order. I can add actual filters, right? I can constrain which applications show up. So for example, I only want to see applications where the company is City University, right? And hit save here. So I have 19 out of my total. Let's go to the full view here. Out of my total 58. Okay, so if you're going to create modified views, I do encourage you to rename your views so that you know what the modification was. So I'm going to put here something like applications, you know, City University, like this. And it's very clear to me what this view is for. You'll notice that whenever you want to, you know, expose a new column or hide a column, even if you don't make very many other changes to this filtered view, the moment you change anything, Bubble's going to create a new modified view for you. You can also copy existing views so that it carries over most of, you know, all of the settings that you have there. So we have copied here, and then I can work off of that so I don't overwrite my other modified view. So that's just a little shortcut there for you. Okay. These views are not going to do any other calculations for you. They're just going to show you the exact values that you have in your database. You may have worked with other data platforms where they have kind of auto calculation fields, like they may aggregate or roll up numbers for you. As an example, this view does not do that. If you needed to aggregate on numbers and see them in a table format like this, you have a couple options. You can either create new fields and use workflows to do those calculations for you, or you can design an entire interface for yourself in one of your app's pages and use a repeating group to display all of this data in a very custom way, in a way that's designed to help you as much as possible. There is going to be a point where looking at your data through Bubble's built-in viewer may not offer all of the searching and filtering capabilities that you need out of the application. For example, if you're building an internal application for your own company, you may not find the need to design a whole page for yourself. But if you're not getting the capability out of this, because this is kind of raw data with basic filtering, basic sorting and all of that, if you're not getting the capability you need, you should design an interface for yourself where you have more control over manipulating how everything appears, how you can search through things. You have more flexibility around viewing relationships, right? You can make them interactive a lot more. So if I were, if I had designed an admin page for myself to essentially replicate what I see here, I could also add workflows to it so that, if I click on the company name, maybe it shows a pop-up and gives me all of the company details, or it shows a group off to the side, right? Or if I click on an email address, it opens up an email composer so that I can immediately start writing an email. Okay, so this view back here is definitely something you can use for troubleshooting, for confirming that your data is being created properly. Obviously, you can see, you have the ability to upload new entries in bulk. You can export your data to a CSV so that you download those if you need to manipulate them or just have them as a backup file. So these are more admin functions, but don't let this be the only way you view your data. You know, you can design dashboards for yourself and leveraging dynamic expressions, repeating groups, and workflows to work with it in a way that's actually going to help you. Okay. So you also have the ability to create new views from scratch by clicking on that button. I don't actually use that one very much. I like to just kind of go off of here and either click a copy or just edit from here. I find it to be a little bit faster that way. If your application has a lot of data types or you've created a lot of modified views, Bubble helps us out by allowing us to search through those. So for example, if I'm trying to find my applications for the City University, or maybe I have other data types that I've also filtered by City University, just typing in city, as long as I have that in the name, it'll filter that and I can find those much faster. Okay, so as you could see, we could also search through here. If I typed in, let's see, withdrawn, right? That was the status for some of my for my applications. There will be some search terms that you won't be able or there will be some fields that you won't be able to search through. So for example, if I type in city here, notice that nothing comes up. Well, how could that be? I'm actually on the view where every single application is city, so why am I not seeing everything? Well, that's because this search term is only going to be matched against plain text fields on the application data type. The City University name is not actually a part of the application data type directly. It's a part of the company data type. This is just a relationship field. So be mindful of that when you're doing searches here. Okay. If you don't see all of the columns in your view here, Bubble also has a quick way for you to add the rest. It's just going to open up another modified view for you. So you have a few different ways of getting to these same windows. Now, there are a few different bulk modification buttons that you have available in the upper right corner of this table. These are all only available for paid plans, so you won't be able to get to them until you upgrade to at least the first paid plan. But I'll describe what these are for and how they work. The upload button will allow you to upload a CSV with your data and create records in your database in mass, right? So if you have like 100 or just many, many, many records that you don't want to create manually, either through this window here or even through workflows, you can put everything in a CSV and upload them. Bubble will allow you to map your column headers from your CSV into your fields that you've defined here in the editor. Similarly, you can modify existing records with the CSV as well, right? So let's say that you made an upload of 500 records and then you wanted to make a change to all 500, after the fact, after you've imported everything. You can modify with an updated CSV. The important thing is that modify spreadsheet needs to have the unique ID of the existing record. Otherwise, Bubble wouldn't know which record to change. So the best way to approach that flow is, you first upload everything. You have your records in your table. Then you will export everything. Bubble will create a CSV for you. It will typically email it to you when it's ready to download. And then from there, you can add your modification, and then you would re-import through the modify button that updated CSV, and then everything will get updated in bulk. Keep in mind that is not the only way to modify your records in mass like that. You can also take advantage of your backend workflows. There are different strategies for creating workflows around this, but this is kind of the most direct, kind of raw format of managing records, in big buckets like that. And then the last button here is actually triggering a backend workflow that you would have to design and create all the logic around it so that it can perform some series of actions on that record. So that is a backend workflow thing. Once you have that ready, clicking on this button will reveal any available backend workflows that are compatible with the data type that you're looking at. So your backend workflow actually has to identify, hey, we're going to work with an application or we're going to work with a company. And in that case, you can run that workflow on, the full view that you have here or on selected items. It's completely, what you need out of it. The last thing I want to point out is that you have these two very subtle texts at the bottom here. If you're not seeing all of your data, when you're scrolling through this table, make sure you have actually loaded everything. So here I'm looking at 19 entries. Let's go to another example where I have maybe more entries. Let's try users. Here I have 147. So if I scroll to the very bottom, I'm only looking at the first 50. If I load 50 more, it's going to, allow me to scroll more. So just be mindful of that if you see that you're not getting everything. The other one is your refresh data button. So oftentimes when you are creating records through your front-end designs, through your workflows, you may want to come back in here and immediately check to see that it's been added to the database. In most cases, it'll update automatically. You'll see it appear instantly, but there might be some cases where if they're heavier workflows, it will not refresh for you automatically, even though technically it is in the database. So just hit this button to force refresh it. Just think of it as your your email inbox that you're asking to force refresh to go fetch new emails that have been delivered to you. All right. We don't actually have new data, so nothing's going to appear here. It's going to think and then, not reveal anything. If for some reason that still doesn't show any new data and you're sure that there's something that has been added to the database, well, you can do a hard refresh on the editor itself. So, on your browser by just completely reloading the page. And if that doesn't reveal the data, then something probably went wrong with your workflows. Either it didn't run as you expected, something was not hooked up properly, or maybe you're in a filtered view where you're not going to see that data. So just be mindful of all of those things as you're troubleshooting. All right, everyone, in the next video, we're going to go over the privacy subtab of managing your data overall. This has a big impact on user permissions, what they can see, what they can edit, who can access what, and you have complete control over those rules. We'll see you there.